everybody, what's going on? And welcome back to Hank's Think Tank. Guess what? I got David Mullane in here today.
Thanks for having me.
Good afternoon, David.
Good afternoon.
We got a good show for you here today. We've got Dr. Stephen Missick, and he is a candidate for Texas House of Representatives, District 18. Don't forget, guys, the primary is March 1st, 2022. Early voting starts when, David?
I believe it is Valentine's Day.
That's right, Valentine's Day. And we're all looking forward to getting out there and casting our vote, being a part of the process. Dr. Missick has also authored several books. We're going to discuss the titles and the context of those in just a few minutes here. But before I do that, I want to thank our sponsor, FD Tactics, your source for embroidery, screen printing, and first responder uniforms. They can be reached at fdtactics.com. Thanks a bunch, guys. We appreciate you. Dr. Missick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good for you to have me here. I appreciate you inviting me to come on.
Hey, man, it was great, and I appreciate you, helping me out and getting the emails done and everything so we could get it all together. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, and especially I'd like to hear what books you've written.
Okay.
Because I'm an avid reader. I love to read, man. Yeah, let's talk about it.
All right. Well, I'm Dr. Stephen Andrew Missick, and I have written several books. Right now, I'm a pastor in Cleveland, Texas. I'm pastor of King of Saints Tabernacle. My background is Southern Baptist. I have I got my bachelor's degree at Sam Houston State University, and then I became a military chaplain. I've been in the military for 28 years of service. I've been deployed to combat in Iraq twice. So to be a chaplain, you have to have a master's degree in divinity. So I went to Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary, got my master's degree, went for my second deployment to Iraq, and when I came back, I'm very interested in apologetics and teaching, so I'd like to become a professor eventually. Mm-hmm. That hasn't worked out yet because once I got my doctorate, I went on the border mission almost immediately, so I haven't had a chance to.
And I want to make sure and touch on that border mission.
Oh, yeah, we're going to talk about that. I think that's a very relevant issue.
Great.
Because that's one of the biggest issues our country is facing is border security and the immigration issue.
Right.
So, yes, I'm preaching. We have Saturday services. My father founded that church, and he had a kind of a messianic, a Jewish focus, understanding Jesus, and that's something I've been interested in. My first book I wrote, which I don't have a copy here, was about the Aramaic language. I've been in the Middle East several times on military duty, but I've also gone on my own, visiting Middle Eastern Christian communities like the Coptic Christians in Egypt and the Assyrian Christians in Iraq, and they still speak Aramaic to this day. There's also a large Assyrian immigrant community here in mostly Chicago and California, and I have good relations with them. I'm actually personal friends with their patriarch, who's an American from Chicago.
Yeah.
Mar Awa. So the first book I wrote was about understanding Jesus through the Aramaic language. It's the words of Jesus in the original Aramaic. And I've written a lot of different books since then. I got some of them here. I've written books, mostly that they have a biblical focus, like that book I mentioned about Jesus, understanding Jesus through his language, the Aramaic language. There's a lot of words and expressions in the New Testament that's in Aramaic. Like Abba, Father, that's the Aramaic word. Or where Jesus is crucified, Golgotha, that's Aramaic. I mean, the disciples have Aramaic names, like Martha means the lady, Thomas means a twin. When Jesus is on the cross, he speaks Aramaic. But that's all in my book if you're curious about Aramaic, and there's that book I've written. I'm an artist, so I did a graphic novel on the Hanukkah story.
Oh,
so it's a little kind of graphic novel. I think the Hanukkah story is really amazing. Story. It was included in the original King James Bible of 1611. They had the Hanukkah story stuck between the Old and New Testament. But yeah, I did that picture and all that artwork.
Nice looking.
So this is another art book on some of my artwork, illustrating Bible facts. So,
and these are all available on Amazon?
They're all on Amazon.
Okay.
I left a book I wanted to bring, but that's okay. 2 books on the life of Christ, Jesus the Nazarene. This is about just an overview of his life. It's about discipleship because I think the church has lost a lot of ground, and there's biblical illiteracy, and just basic discipleship. People don't know the life of Christ the way they ought to, so I just thought I'd have a little short book so people could read through it and know who, what's important to know about Jesus' life and ministry. So that's why I wrote this one. And I wrote and illustrated this. This is like Jesus year one. and it's about Jesus and John the Baptist, and from John the Baptist ministry till his martyrdom, and Jesus in the temple. So this is Christ the man. I was going to do a 3-part thing about the life of Jesus. This is part 1.
So how many books have you authored?
Probably 20.
Really? Do you sleep at all?
I haven't. I was cranking books out, and what happened was I did my doctoral thesis, right? Mm-hmm. And I need to publish that. It's about one of the things that's focused on was the migrant crisis, because we have an international migrant crisis. Mm-hmm. And I lived in Syria. I've been to Iraq. When I was doing my doctoral program, I went to Iraq to visit. ISIS was targeting moderate Muslims as well as the Syrian Christians and the Yazidis. Yazidis are it's a very complex religion. It's like a hybrid of Islam and paganism and Christianity. It's and I was driving from I went to Arbil to Dahuk in it's Kurdistan, independent Kurdistan. And it's amazing. It's like a Muslim village, Christian village, Muslim villages. One of the Christian villages is El Kush, where they have the tomb of Jonah, because Jonah came and preached to the people. But anyway, I mean, they're killing moderate Muslims, Yazidis, and Christians. And I was doing this doctoral thesis, since I worked with the Assyrians so much. I thought I'd have all this unique research I've done about this, kind of obscure field of study. So I put it in my doctoral thesis. I went over there to see for myself, and I interviewed refugees. It's terrible, especially in Mosul. Mm-hmm. ISIS is coming up. People just had to drop everything and leave that moment. Wow. And they fled to the Kurdistan province because, the Kurds are very nationalistic, and that's their autonomous region. And they're not going to let ISIS in there to destabilize their power. Right. So it was safe, because they're not going to. The Kurds are not going to allow ISIS to go into to Erbil, and that's where they ran. And they're just people. They're still living in. Actually, they were living in soldier housing units that we stayed at when I was in Iraq. We left. I guess they had these. They just moved them into it. But when the refugee crisis first started, these people are just staying out, sleeping in parking lots and fields. Mm-hmm. It's horrible. So that's what I did my doctoral thesis on. But I've only published like 2 or 3 books since that was so labor. I mean, it should be, right? When you're earning a doctorate, it's a lot of work. Sure. Yeah. So it was difficult, and I needed to make some tweaks to it, and then I can publish my doctoral thesis. Okay. So anyway, that's the last thing I wrote. But I did a film about the life of St. Jude Thaddeus, and this is my brother. He directed and acted in it. Okay. I did 2 versions of. Like before I came here, I was checking on the news or YouTube, and they have these commercials for St. Jude's Hospital, right? Mm-hmm. And St. Jude in Aramaic, they call him Mar Adai, and he traveled to the east and preached the gospel to the Assyrians, and he's popular with Catholics as the patron saint of lost and desperate causes. Mm-hmm. So if you go to a Catholic church, you see St. Jude all over the place. But I think they pray to him as like the last resort in extreme situations. Maybe maybe St. Jude will answer my prayer. But he was an apostle of Jesus Christ, and it's a very interesting story. It's like what happened. The further adventures, the 12 apostles, the further acts of the apostles. So okay. I'd like to do we did St. Jude Thaddeus. I wish we could do like a film for each of the 12 apostles, because they're very fascinating stories. They've been preserved by the early church fathers. So this is I did a docudrama, and that book's called the St. Jude Thaddeus Storybook, and then this is St. Jude Thaddeus and the Legend of the Shroud with my brother. And I think these books, I wrote it and put it together, but I think they look very professional and they're nice. So.
And you said those were made into a movie.
Yeah, it's a movie. It's edited. I need to get it out there. I might just finally publish it on YouTube. Right, I don't know. Well. It's kind of hard to find a distributor. It needs some editing. Actually, we did it's really amazing. We did a music video, and we entered it into competition at the International Christian Film Festivals, and we were able to screen the music video, which is in modern Aramaic, and with Lisa. She calls her stage name is Lisa Fisher. Leah Rose Fisher, or Leah Rose Syed. And very nice. She actually has you can get it on, I guess, iTunes and listen to the video that we put together as a part of the film, just telling the story of St. Jude Thaddeus and how the Assyrians accepted the gospel in song. Okay. And I wrote two books about my deployments. I did a soldier in Iraq for my first deployment, and this is a chaplain in Iraq. So I have a lot of experience in education. While I was earning my doctorate, I was substitute teaching.
Okay.
So I've taught everything from, I guess, the preschool and the public system all the way to 12th grade, gym, chorus, science, math. I've taught every subject as a substitute teacher. And one day I was in a classroom and they had this book. Was it The Librarian of Basra? And it was like, oh, the soldiers invaded and we tried to kill this poor librarian. We're terrorizing him, chasing the soldiers like devils, chasing. It's like I was in Basra. This is baloney. What is this? This is terrible. And it's like, this could be damaging to a child.
Mm-hmm.
It's story time. And here's the American soldiers trying to kill the librarian of Basra. And I was thinking, well, that could be, maybe daddy's in Iraq or, uncle or brother or sister. And says, this is guy. I said, I don't believe it. I was in Basra when this was going on. We were going around terrorizing, elderly librarians. This is nonsense. I said, well, why don't I write a story that in a non-frightening manner, what it's like for a reservist from deployment to when you get back home, so kids can understand what's going on in case, one of their loved ones or relatives is deployed.
Right.
And so I did that. And then when my second deployment, I put this together. It's the same thing, showing what I was doing as a chaplain and taking care of our soldiers. It's a National Guard chaplain, my second deployment. Interestingly, both times I went to Iraq. So,
okay.
And,
And so what made you decide to run for this particular position?
I'm sorry I'm rambling on so
No,
far,
that's
but
okay,
people
you're
can get
good.
my books on Amazon.
Okay. Yeah.
And I got my YouTube channel. I was doing a web series on St. Jude Thaddeus showing clips of the films as well. And I need to pick that up. But when I came off the border mission, actually I had to go back. I couldn't go back full time, but we don't have enough chaplains. And our soldiers are out there in this mission, and I'm concerned about them. A lot of issues come up, and I think we need chaplains to go in there and check on the welfare of the soldiers, to help them with counseling, things like that, and see what's going on, notify the command. And so I've been busy. How did I? Well, the border is why I decided to run. For a couple of reasons. I'm very concerned about what's happening in our country right now. Just a lot of. We're going to talk about these issues as we go through. But so I'm at the border. And, while I was there, I was making friends, I was interacting with, local pastors. And a lot of soldiers on the mission are from the Valley. We're talking about the Valley. We're talking about the Rio Grande Valley, which is basically from Brownsville all the way to Roma, right? Some people might have considered Laredo is kind of its own little area, but the lower Rio Grande Valley, and everybody down there is bilingual. If you're in the Valley and you speak only English, you'll be fine. If you speak only Spanish, you'll be fine. Because, and that's just, if that's the only language you can get, with either one, you'll get around just fine because everybody down there is bilingual. And it's a very interesting place. You got South Padre Island, and Brownsville's changed for the better lately. We'll talk about the wall, but the wall's really benefited that community. Okay. So you got Brownsville to McAllen. Anyway, I like that Elon Musk is building SpaceX down there. Mm-hmm. So while I was down there, I visited see his rockets. You're allowed to go there and look at a rocket and, stand outside your car and look at a rocket for like 5 minutes. And then, if you stay longer than that, they'll probably chase you off.
Skedaddle.
But they'll let you, go out and get a selfie or a picture or two and then take off, which I did a couple of times. It's really amazing. I hope that really picks off. I think that picks up because we need science and technology. It's good for the area if you have a successful spaceport. Mm-hmm. Because Brownsville used to be the poorest city in the country. Probably still is. But they built a wall in that area, and a lot of the problems they were suffering before they had the border wall have kind of been solved. But there's still a lot of problems in that community, and that's why the area down there is flipping from blue to red. Okay. So because it's hurting the community. Those states, you understand, those North Mexican states are controlled by the drug cartels. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't believe, I think it was like talking to the Border Patrol agents, 40 tons of drugs come across, not every quarter, not every year, every month. And people are dying by the hundreds of thousands, overdosing from fentanyl and other drugs from Mexico. Yeah. And our government doesn't seem to, about Americans dying from drugs from Mexico. News doesn't care about it. They don't care about it. These are human beings. These are American citizens. And it's not an issue to the news media or to politicians.
Is that one of the reasons why you wanted to run for state representative?
About the border issue, yes, I think that's one of the motivating issues. So take for instance, I was talking to Border Patrol agents about, people have been there for a long time. And so you used to go around, like 15, 20 years ago, you go down to Brownsville and you just go down the highway and you can see the poverty. You can see all day long prostitutes walking around the streets, just dire poverty. You could tell this is it. But now they have pretty good border security there. And now there's economic development, storefronts, and hotels. And you go along the highway, you can't tell that there's as much poverty as there actually still is. So what they did is...
So what happened to the cartel rule, though? Because I know that the cartel...
I'm imagining the cartel is probably... I'll give you an example. Right outside the armory, you have Donna. Just reading the news reports down there. Donna is a... They built a big tent, $1 million tent there to house the migrants. We had this huge influx. Then they did the Remain in Mexico policy, and... that's the big solution to the problems. Remain in Mexico. Okay. But anyway, Donna High School, how schools usually have their own police department, right? I was reading the news over there, and the officer working that school was a cartel member. Could you imagine? He's a cartel member in the school. Yeah. Probably getting the kids, probably recruiting the girls for prostitution, getting the kids addicted to drugs, recruiting, people to sell drugs and be, muscle and stuff like that. It's just shocking. Here we are in a school, police officers entrusted to protect the students is a cartel. So, since the northern states of Mexico, the cartel controls them, they did not, it's not safe for our soldiers. We were not allowed when I was on that mission to go into Mexico because, this is too dangerous.
Right.
So all that's flowing across the border. If the border's open, you have all the cartel activity. For instance, you have Catholic charities. They'd start a house to shelter, the migrants. And the people in the area it's like, you bring these people in, they're robbing our homes. And, we don't want these. It's a burden, too. So the people in the community down there, they're looking at the problems at open borders. Look at Cuellar, right? Congressman Cuellar. He's a Democrat. And he's always complaining, it's like, we need border security, we need a border wall, because the community doesn't want it. It hurts that community. And a lot of reasons, because the Democrat Party is becoming more progressive. And, the way they see it, they're starting to see the Democrat Party as hostile to traditional Hispanic and Catholic values. With, this was that racist governor in Virginia, Ralph Northam. The guy that wears the clown costume, Democrat governor.
Okay.
You don't remember that guy?
Yeah.
No.
He wears brown. It's the most racist, the most offensive and racist thing I've ever seen in my life. And he should have had the graciousness and dignity to resign. But the Democrat Party supported him. And that really offends me in a lot of ways when this guy's an overt racist and they don't do anything about it. And they accuse conservatives. It offends me. We're accused of being racist. I'm not. I oppose racism. Jesus died for the sins of all mankind. The book of Revelations describes the kingdom of God as all nations and languages and peoples. So but we hear it all the time. You're racist. You're racist. You're racist. But then you have an overt racist, Ralph Northam, and he serves out his whole term. And I'm looking at that. That's just shocking and offensive. But Ralph Northam says, if a baby's born and he's not wanted, we'll do a infanticide. We'll just kill it. We'll make it comfortable and kill the baby. So finally, that's trickling down, and you get pro-life Catholics hearing that, and it's like, well, if this is what the Democrat Party is, if they have such a radical position on abortion that they're killing newborn babies, I don't want any part of it. So they're starting to turn against the Democrat Party in there, and
let's talk about you. Let's talk about
right.
your campaign.
Let me
do that.
Let me ask you a question.
Anyway, so what happened?
Being that you've spent time down at the border, my question is,
sorry, I'm going to
would there be any viable alternatives to a border wall, or do you think the border wall is the answer?
We'll talk about that. I want to get back to that. I want to finish my thought. So what happened was I was down in the border, and it was amazing. A lot of these votes were really close this last election, where a lot of Republicans got in. So I went down there to sign up Republicans down at the valley to help with this turning the area from blue to red. And I thought, well, I could do this too. I was at the Republicans headquarters, and it's like, why don't I just go back and I'll throw my hat in the ring too, since I was doing that with my friends down there. It's Dr. as Flores, she's down there campaigning for county judge, and some other young men who are in there, like young Republicans in the Valley. It's like, well, I can do this too. But about the border wall, one of the things we were doing with our soldiers, it's hard to hire people in the Border Patrol. It's probably like a 6-month process because you have to have a lot of security clearance and things like that. And one of the things that happened down there, the way they're demonizing the Border Patrol, I would say 80% or 90% of Border Patrol agents down there are Hispanic. Mm-hmm. So all this nonsense about them being racist. And besides that, we need to support law enforcement. They're down there sacrificing. You don't understand how hard it is. It's hot down there. And I did the same thing when I was in Iraq. I have to wear body armor, right? I come back from patrol soaking wet, because I went down to Baghdad and came back wearing all that. They're standing there, 8 to 12 hours out in the heat all day long, getting inundated by, illegal aliens, illegal crossers, and drug trafficking. And we need to support our Border Patrol agents. So what we were doing, though, is request for assistance, our National Guard soldiers. A lot of times they're watching the video feed because the Border Patrol doesn't have enough agents to sit down and watch the video feed. Right. And there's always what they do is they see something and they call them up to deal with what's the illegal crossing. Mm-hmm. One time it was shocking just seeing people run across and just run down the streets of McAllen. Don't know who these people are. I guess they have nothing to lose. A lot of migrants, if they don't get stopped by Border Patrol, they get to stay in America the rest of their life. If they do, now that we're not doing remain in Mexico, it's catch and release. So a lot of times they just come and give themselves up. We need structures, because here's what's happening. Like I said, Brownsville used to have all these problems, according to Border Patrol agents I was speaking to. They built a wall about to McAllen or La Jolla. So what that does is that's funneled all the activities, like Rio Grande City and Romare. Mm-hmm. I stopped at a gas station once. I said, how you doing? Oh, well, it's a typical day, gunfire and police sirens and lights, just another day at the border, because there's nothing to stop them. And so they're just, they're going the path of least resistance. And one of the things they do is these migrants, sometimes they pay as much as $10,000 to cross the border illegally. And what they do is they bring them down, and the Border Patrol agents have to apprehend and process these illegal trespassers, right? Mm-hmm. The migrants, and they have to take them to a holding facility, keep them there for usually. Now, right now it's catch and release, so they're going to release them. So what they do is they have them mired down with that, and they bring on unimpeded, tons and tons of drugs that kill Americans. Right. So the Border Patrol the border is an important issue, and just being there, living in that community for over 3 years, you see that. I really believe a border wall is needed.
So you don't think there would be another viable alternative to a border wall?
Like I said, if you have we have other modes. Like I said, there are videos, but with what do they do when they take the soldiers off the mission? They don't have enough Border Patrol agents. And the issue is sometimes there's bad apples in there, corrupt Border Patrol agents.
You're going to have that with any organization, right?
So that's why they have a long process, because they want to try to weed those people out. But still, bad ones get in there, and what do they do? They could be trafficking people, trafficking drugs. They had Border Patrol agents actually serial killers when I was there. Yeah. Most of them are great people, but it's like, why do they have they need so many people? Why is such a hard process to hire them? But that's just the system. And like I said, it takes over 6 months to get a yeah or nay answer. They don't have enough people there. If you don't have enough people, you're going to need a wall, structures to stop it. And living at the border for so long, I just think it's absolutely necessary for there to be a wall. Okay. Just to protect our country. And there's a process. On the way here, I was listening. I think it's Michael Berry on the radio, and he's talking about this person. Here's what the president could do right now to solve the border issue. And he says, if you want to be, there's visas for people to come over here and work. There's a legal process, but right now they're just coming over. And we had over 2 million people that crossed the border this year. Right. And over the time I was there, it was kind of, it's heartbreaking to see so many people coming across the border. And it's not just, it's people from China, the Middle East, all over the whole world. They fly to, it's like, hey, if we cross the border, we get, catch a release, we get to stay there the rest of our lives. So they're coming. But it's just seeing the chaos. It's horrible. So many people, and we had them intense. They have to be processed. They have to be. And it's just disheartening. And then, so they did remain in Mexico, and it really solved the problem to a large degree. You started seeing less and less people until I felt like, well, it looks like our work is done here, right? And then we have a change of administration. All the progress that we made, all of our progress is gone.
Okay. We're going to shift gears.
Sorry about all that.
That's okay. So I want to talk about redistricting and how it's changed your area of representation.
Yes, that was kind of
Can you just explain a little bit how redistricting has changed your area of representation?
Yeah, I think that was very interesting, because what happened is, like, I was down at the border, and it's like, I'm gonna run, and I looked at the district, and it's like, I went to school in Huntsville. I have to go to Liberty because I think that's the county seat, and it's like, okay, this is Huntsville, Cleveland, Shepherd, Liberty. I know that whole area. I can go back and forth and campaign, and this is. So then I registered to vote, and then I found out they changed the district where Huntsville's gone, and they added was it Hardin County with Kuntz and Silsbee. And it's like, I have a friend in Kuntz, but I've never been over there. And it's like, wow, this changes everything. So it went from a district I knew to, like, a part of it that I knew is not there anymore. And then this whole new area. So it's kind of a challenge. And it's going to be a challenge for campaigning. Like I said, I do have friends in Kuntz where I can go in that area and meet and greet and interact with that area. So it's totally different.
Property taxes are a big issue, not only in your district, but the whole state of Texas. Do you have any plans to reduce property taxes? And if so, how?
Well, as I was talking to you before the program started, my father passed away from COVID back in, I think it was August the 25th. And my stepmother died 5th of September. It was really tragic. And he bought 16 acres in Shepherd, and he built his dream home on it, right? And that's part of the legacy of my inheritance of his estate. And you've got to pay the property taxes on that, and it's a lot of money.
Sure.
And right now, because of the failed policies of California and New York, people are trying to escape those states and come to Texas. And now the property values are going, up a lot. And it's like, it's a burden, to have to pay that much money. I'm a disabled vet. My father was also a veteran. So I guess there's ways you can bring it down, but they need to bring the rate down, slash off a significant percentage, because we're American citizens, our country. I want to contribute. That's why we have to pay taxes. I want to pay taxes. But if it's so much, it's like, can I keep this land? It shouldn't be that way, where you're forced off your land because taxes are so high, right? So that's something that affects me personally, and I want to bring taxes down to a fair rate. It's not to have onerous, heavy taxes on people that trying to have a rural community or their property. That's something that affects me personally. Yeah, if I'm in Austin, it's like, we need to get these down, because if I win as state representative, that's like $8,000 a year or so, right?
Yeah, it's an enormous job.
Probably, I think I'll be paying over $5,000 in taxes for that 16 acres of my father, or even more, right? So all my money would go to pay off paying the taxes on my father's property. So that's something I'm concerned about, where we need to have fair tax rates where it's not onerous or oppressive, or, like I said, it's like, this tax is so high, can I keep this property? I should be able to keep my father's property in our family, right, and not have to think about losing it because I'm taxed so much. Right. I said.
So would you attempt to do that through budget adjustments in other areas? Because, if you reduce the rate, you're going to lose money, and that money's going to need to be spent somewhere because it's already being spent somewhere.
I think a lot of times.
So I think you're going to have to look at an overall budget adjustment to be able to reduce the tax rate. Big job.
Well, yes.
Huge.
We'll look ways to do that.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of times, if you lower tax rates, sometimes you get more taxes because people try to find ways to get out of paying taxes, right? Higher tax lottery. But if you have a fair rate, people aren't going to look at ways to get out of taxes. If it's, okay, that's a reasonable tax rate, I'll pay it. Instead of, that's so much, I'm going to,
Well, lately it seems to be not the tax rate, but the values going up on the homes and on the lands.
Yeah, the appraisals.
The appraisal
Right.
or the values going up so
Right.
much these days.
That's something I'm concerned about. We need to think about solutions for that. And is it going to come back down? But yeah, sometimes these counties, they want more money, so they get people in there to appraise the land for higher values. I remember this man. This is kind of funny. This has been years ago, but up in Shepherd, this man had a feed store, and when he was paying taxes, they're saying his property was worth so much money. But then when it was they had to buy him out because of what's the word for that?
Eminent domain.
Yeah, eminent domain.
Wasn't worth that much anymore, was it?
No. Is that
Yeah, of
fair?
course not, yeah.
Is that fair when it
Eminent
comes
domain.
to taxing his property's worth? He was complaining about that to me. It's like, I was paying taxes. They're saying this property's worth so much. Now that we have to expand the highway and I have to give up my feed store, they're saying my property's like worth a third of what I was paying taxes on. That's not fair.
Right.
That's not fair. But that's the things they do. And maybe we need to look. I guess if you have citizens who are directly impacted by it, standing up against these people, like I said, I'm a citizen. I want to support my community and pay a fair amount of taxes, but it shouldn't be exploitative or onerous.
Right.
So that is an issue where they
Fair amount.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you one more question. Since COVID, obviously everybody's working from home. You got a lot of people, businesses, employees working from home. Do you have any plans, or what's your thoughts on increasing broadband in your district and in the area?
I think it's important because I have the issue of at the farm not getting cell phone reception out there, or spotty internet and things like that. It's the way the world is. We need good broadband
More now than ever, obviously.
Yeah, and like I said, because of COVID, I've been teaching even recently, and you take roll, and a third of the kids are gone because their parents are afraid they'll be exposed to COVID. And they're, so they need. I don't know if that's going on in Shepherd. I haven't worked in that district, but they need good internet so they can do. It's just the way of the world now, right? The internet's a necessity, right? I remember it's like, you have to get an email. Oh, these older people. It's like, well, go to your library and figure it out. But everything's on the phone now, and a lot of people are with the new age of technology. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating for me. It's like, I can't get any phone calls out to my father's estate in Shepherd. They need us to make it where we can. This is the United States of America, right? It's not a third world country.
Well, if you get in that position, perhaps you'll be in a position to help bring broadband out to that area.
Yeah, I will.
Obviously, if you.
Because I'd help my my uncle out there, and my property, or my father's property, where it's my official residence in Shepherd. That would be a benefit to me to get broadband out there. We need it.
Okay.
So.
My next question's kind of long.
Okay.
And the meat of it is actually at the bottom of the question, so it's kind of an explanation first. So, and I'd really like to get a pretty specific answer if you can. So regarding SB 8, which is the Texas Heartbeat Act, how do you feel about this type of private citizen enforcement and its attempt to be adopted by other states, whereas civil lawsuits are being used to enforce different types of legislation? In an example, in 2021, California introduced a new gun legislation enabling civil actions to be brought against gun manufacturers and dealers. And the question is, should private citizens become an enforcement avenue to varying types of new legislation?
All right, that's about a pro-life issue.
So, really, the question isn't about. The question's more about, should legislation be created that allows the average citizen to be the enforcement avenue to that legislation, as opposed to a policing agency or another agency?
Okay, so that deals with two issues. One is the abortion issue, but in California, they're trying to say if a gun is manufactured, they're going to sue the manufacturer.
Or if there's an accident with a gun, or I'm not really sure exactly what the total scope of the California introduction was.
As a Christian, And I was reading. I'm into biblical literature, and we have the church fathers, and we have the apostolic fathers. So these were writings from the period when the church fathers when the apostles were still alive, right? Mm-hmm. So you have the church fathers are unanimous, and the Bible, that life begins at conception, and as Christians we don't believe in abortion. So that's my position as a Christian, as a Bible-believing Christian, informed by the tradition of the church from the apostolic fathers in the early church period. But with the right to bear arms, I believe in the right to bear arms, and that's. With that, I think that's kind of ridiculous, right? Since this gun was manufactured, we're gonna go after the manufacturer instead of the person that pulled the trigger. Mm-hmm. That's just a backhanded way to go and get gun control legislation. Before Roe versus Wade, every state determined their own abortion laws. Mm-hmm. So New York and California allow for abortion, in other states like Texas and others. Of course, Roe versus Wade came from Texas. Mm-hmm. Right. I think it's Ann Richards and others wanted to take that issue at the Supreme Court to legalize it across the whole country. I think it's undemocratic. I think that the people should be able to make the laws about. I think abortion should be illegal. It's my position. I'm pro-life. But it's better for the states to make their decisions on that, so the people, through the democratic process, either allow or restrict that, the abortion procedures. Mm-hmm. Like if Roe versus Wade was, which might happen, the Supreme Court could throw it out. Probably won't, but this, based on the recent arguments, they might throw it out. Then, of course, Texas and other states would probably restrict abortion, but other states would not. So you'd have to travel to California somewhere where some women could still get abortions, most likely. I don't know what I think about, that's what they're doing. It's like you can sue someone for
citizen enforcement.
It's just like the average Joe would enforce legislation. How would you feel about that? Just a guy off the street enforcing state-sponsored legislation.
In other words, do you think that someone who has absolutely nothing to do with the abortion but has knowledge of it should be able to bring about a lawsuit and because of that legislation win that suit?
Since I'm pro-life, I would support anything that's against abortion, because I think abortion is taking a human life. So I think that's very serious. I think human life's being taken. Any citizen should try to stop a human life from being taken.
Right, but actually the question applied to other forms of legislation, because I think that if this thing becomes successful, it's my personal opinion.
Avenue to other things.
It's my personal opinion that it's gonna take off, and as new legislation is created, there'll always be a citizen enforcement component. And what's that going to do to our country? Is it just going to turn us into a bunch of rats?
Turn against each other?
Yeah.
It's already happening with all the polarization.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's just adding to that.
I'd have to think about that. My issue is I'm pro-life, not that I'm, it's this very interesting way they passed that law, and I think it needs to be thought through. But my position isn't in support of that type. It's support of the preserving human life. That human life is sacred. We shouldn't take. As far as that avenue to do that, like you said, maybe it is going to start a bad precedent. I don't know. My position is pro-life, not necessarily supporting that mechanism, which could have bad results. I don't know. I have to think about it more deeply. Okay. But for me, you're looking at the issue is I'm pro-life and I'm pro Second Amendment. So those are the two issues that are arising through these types of legislation. But you might have a point, and I have to think about that. There are other ways that could be used where people are going around and
right.
I don't know, creating more division and polarization than we already have, which you have way too much. So I have to think about that. But I am pro-life, I am pro-gun. As far as that mechanism in there, I don't know. I can understand. I understand you have valid concerns about that, and you could be very well. Have good reasons to be suspicious of this tactics.
Great. David?
Well, let me ask you this. You're running against 3 other opponents for your district. What's your thoughts on your opponents? I'm sure you had a chance to study them.
I'm not going to say anything negative about it.
Your thoughts?
Bailes, I saw him. He seems to be a nice guy. And what's your name? Holt. I haven't, was it Bubba Tullos? I haven't met him. haven't even seen him. I'm sure they're all, okay. I think that I'm a conservative Republican. In the end, I hope I win. That'd be great, because I want to go in.
You're running.
I'm a warrior. I want to fight, fight for the Constitution and everything that's great about America in Austin. And let our voices be heard. And So in the end, whoever it is, I'm going to support. I think this is a pivotal election. I'm going to support that person. But I'm looking at our community, and I think there's a lot of problems that aren't being addressed, right? And I think the state representatives should be concerned about it. Like I'm from Cleveland's got a drug problem, right?
Cleveland?
Well, I think, a lot of the area has problems.
Right. Well,
I think anywhere you go in the country, there's a drug problem.
We should be concerned about these issues,
I
right?
agree.
You see people, like there's a lot of homeless people and vagrants in the streets in Cleveland. And number one, they're human beings. They're having, we should be concerned about them. How can we help them? Can we get them help? Are they mentally ill? Is something wrong? But it gets a point where, like, there's certain places in Austin I feel like it's totally out of control. I feel like it's dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you see all these homeless encampments under the bridges in Austin, and it's like, I don't feel safe. Maybe this guy's going to attack me or something.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to go around and drive through this. Those issues we need to help people, and you can't allow. Like I think it's out of control in Austin. Of course, that's not my district, but it's like, look, this is the capital of Texas. Texas is Davy Crockett. All these.
Sure.
All these.
Are y'all planning any debates? You and your opponents? Are y'all planning any debates for the primary?
No, I don't know about that. I guess I want to win, but I don't. God bless everybody. Wish will. I don't know. I don't want to have to. Have a. Well, maybe you could. Maybe you could tackle. I could ask them about. Hey, you want to have a debate?
That'd be great. Yeah.
I'll see if they want to do it, but I want to do it in a friendly,
Sure.
friendly manner. So
that's the only way to really do it. A good debate these days.
Right. It's a bigger district, but going from Conroe into Cleveland, there's like trash all over the streets for like a whole month. And it's like, what does this say about our community? And seeing the people with serious problems just not being addressed, I think those have to be addressed. And I think immigration problems aren't just at the border. What about human, drug, and sex trafficking in our communities? And it's like, why aren't
it's definitely here.
Yeah, they're not doing anything about it.
Right.
And they're exploiting these situations for their benefit, but is it the benefit of our community? Right? I mean, there's places that are dangerous because they have cartel activity here in this district.
Yeah, right.
And we just let that happen? And that's the other thing. It's like, we have to have equal justice under law, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with illegal immigration, I've traveled all around the world, and I try to respect. Like when I went to Europe or the Middle East, I got to get the visa, and try to obey their laws while I'm there. I guess there should be concessions because I might not understand everything. But when people just come over and overtly break the law, and they don't, we're not going to enforce law. But if you're like COVID, right? Oh, we're gonna put you out of your job but then you're an illegal alien. Peter Ducey Peter Ducey's asking Psaki, is this the policy that I will, as an American citizen, if I'm not vaccinated, I could be fired? But illegal aliens, they just come across the border, and you're not, these migrants, you're not testing them. You're not, you're not. So we're subject to these laws, but these people aren't. That's not fair. And then on top of that, is COVID dangerous or not? If this is a public health crisis, and it killed my father, and I suffered, I was very, very sick. Then everybody should be held to the same standard. Why are migrants being exempted from that? And just not just COVID, but just with anything, we need to. Plus, we need to keep our communities safe as well.
And I wonder if maybe that boils down to documentation, because I know that in my discussions with local law enforcement, it's hard to document some of these guys because they don't carry IDs. Mm-mm. They all use common names, common Mexican names.
Right.
And so I wonder if maybe the enforcement behind the COVID restrictions is basically just a problem of documentation. I mean, it's easy to document you and I. We have social security numbers, we have IDs, we have driver's licenses. These guys don't.
When they process people at the border, they scan their retina and get their fingerprints, and
That's it.
They stay. I don't know everything they do. I was National Guard supporting the mission. I'm not Border Patrol, but they detain these people, and a lot of them they're doing catch and release, but they're watching for cartel members.
Right, but there's a lot that make it through. That never get caught. And those are the guys who, how are you gonna
E-Verify?
How are you gonna enforce anything upon them?
They have. One time I I was working in the school and I was doing some processing things, and a lot of these people do have IDs, and they're illegal aliens coming to our schools, and I know for a fact that these people are obviously illegal aliens, but they have IDs too. I imagine they can get them in their home countries. They don't. Okay, so a lot of these people don't want to have IDs. Well, one of the things we've seen is you've seen like 23-year-old men going to public school and raping 16, 17-year-old girls, and they came over claiming to be much, so they could say they're a child, or a minor when they're actually. So, number one priority is protecting the citizens of America, the United States. So if these people don't want to show IDs, maybe they need to go back and get one or be provided one.
Okay.
I think just last week they had someone as a terrorist watch list that, a lot of people from the Middle East are crossing.
Oh, I'm sure.
In the news.
Yeah, it's a problem for sure. Yeah.
But on the other hand, we have to have rule of law. But Vice President Harris herself has said this. We need to look at the problems in these countries they're coming from to solve the problems there. So they went. She said it, and I agree with her. Right? Why don't we try to confront the problems these countries have so they don't need to
run
migrate,
across the border? Yeah,
right.
That makes sense.
That's what she said. She's a Democrat, and I'm a Republican, so I agree with that.
And see, I would consider that to be an alternative to a border wall.
We have to have. I want law enforcement, but we also have to have compassion on people too. And you can't hate people. Jesus said, "I am the Son of Man of all mankind." And we need to have law enforcement. We need to understand we can't have racism or hate people. We have to love everybody. But that doesn't mean just because you love somebody that they're exempt from law enforcement, right? Or if there should be accountability if you break a law. So.
Okay. All right. So the final question, and to wrap it up, how can the voters get in touch with you or learn more about Dr. Stephen Missick?
All right. Well, I got my books
and your campaign.
Christ the Man. So. You could actually come. I'm preaching every Saturday at my church, and we have if you want to come and visit our church, I'd be glad to have you. So it's King of Saints Tabernacle, 1725, FM 1725, 2228 FM 1725, Cleveland, Texas, Shepherd, Texas. So I'm at the church Sabbath or the Saturday. I teach Sabbath school at 10, preach at 11, have an evening service, and then Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So you can always come and see me at the church. You can write my P.O. Box number, P.O. Box 882, Shepherd, Texas, 77371. I'm online. You can, I guess, Nestorius One, there's easy ways to just go to my website, go to my channel, my YouTube channel. I got like 5,000, what was it? I got millions of views and thousands of subscribers. So I've been doing the YouTube channel for a long time. So that's a way to get through Facebook, YouTube, or visiting the church. And I'm going to, with my uncle, we're going to go through the entire district, and I'm going to be interacting with the constituents, and we're going to blow the shofar and reach out and for conservative principles for the country and for the gospel of Jesus Christ impact our community.
There you go.
Fantastic. Okay, guys. Well, there you have it. Dr. Stephen Missick, an interesting person. And again, he's running for the Texas State House of Representatives, District 18. And that vote's coming down pretty soon. Early voting starts when, David?
Valentine's Day.
Yeah, Valentine's Day.
Right on Valentine's Day.
Primary is March the 1st, I think.
Primary is March the 1st, and it's going to be an interesting race. So again, Doctor, thank you for coming in. And it was an interesting conversation.
Thanks for coming.
It was.
We're out.